Hello there, Matthew Ashdown, the Green Knight, here to explore the theme of dragon lines a little bit with you and the earth energies and the myths that arise out of that and how we can work with myth and earth energies in our journey with the dragon. The many different ways and the many different dimensions that we can meet dragons. One of the ways that the ancients really worked with them was in terms of earth energies, telluric currents that ran beneath the earth, many of the sacred sites that we see scattered throughout the planet in countries all around the world that are deeply connected to this idea of these dragon lines, these energies that are weaving through the land, that are pinned down by giant stones on different sacred sites. And so, we can look at some of the ancients and the ways that they worked with these dragon lines, and we can begin to revive it more in our modern world. And more people are involved in this. There's dowsers who walk the earth and they douse the land looking for dragon lines. And those who are sensitive can feel the dragon lines. And many are naturally drawn to them because of their energy, their vitality. And in the ancient days, there was a real reverence for these places. There was a real reverence for the earth. There was a balancing of these energies. There was a balance of the masculine and feminine energies. There was an honoring of the aliveness of the earth. The earth was seen as a living entity. In ancient Greece, that dragons were seen to be around the ancient pools and rivers and streams. In ancient Greece, they also had the Oracle of Delphi, who is the great seers. And they were known as the Pythoness, and they would work with these serpent energies. And so we hop over then to Europe, and throughout that part of the world, we also see that in the early days, there was this, and when I say early days, that covers a vast amount of time, but we see that they had this reverence for the earth and they worked with these sacred stones. And over time, that became lost, as religion came in, it sort of made these dragons bad. And we have Saint George killing the dragon, slaying the dragon. But really, back in those ancient times, we worked with the earth energies. And even in the East to this day, in China, they have a much different relationship with dragons, as we've been experiencing through this retreat, as we've heard from people like Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, that we've heard about how they work with the dragon energies differently. And today, to this day, they work with feng shui, with the energy of the land and of the place, so that they can harmonize places where properties are being built. There's this working with the land, with the energy in this way. And and we can find a lot of this in some of the ancient myths. And in the Dream Arc, we love working with mythology. We encourage working with mythology as the very timeless nature of mythology can really support us. It takes us beyond the facts and figures of this time or any time, and moves us into a state of timelessness. It allows us to play with the power of our imagination. It's through our imagination that we can come into contact and connection with these higher order beings and with dragons. And so one of the stories that I'm drawn to and have taken deep into my visualizations over these last few years and worked with is the story of Merlin, and specifically from the stories by Geoffrey of Monmouth, who was a Welsh cleric in the 1200s, I believe it was, who wrote the book, The History of the Kings of Britain, and also the life of Merlin, the Vita Merlini. And his work, he shares the story of a young Merlin. It begins, or it picks up rather, where Vortigern is busy building this tower. He's this king, he's declared himself the king, and so he wants to build these towers to protect himself against the invader. He's bent on building this tower on top of this hill, and this hill doesn't seem to be agreeing with him. it doesn't seem to be working or harmonizing with the earth in the way we've been talking about, because he continues to build this tower, and every time he does, it collapses in of itself, and he's getting frustrated, obviously. And so he calls on his court magicians for some guidance. He wants to understand, why is it that this tower keeps collapsing? And so they say to him, well, you know what you need? You need the blood of a fatherless child. And of course, Vortigern, being who he was and desiring what he desired, he believed them. And so he sent out some soldiers to go and find this boy that might be able to give him some blood to be able to stabilize his tower. And so they went out and they journeyed far, and this was across the land of Wales. And they came to a little town that still stands today, known as Carmarthen today. It's literally the town associated with Merlin most closely in Welsh mythology, at least. And they discovered this young boy who was playing with a young prince there. They were playing and talking, and the prince made reference to the fact that Merlin was this fatherless child. And it was said that he had been born to a demon and a human mother. Now, this was, of course, the wording and phraseology that they used in those times. But there's just an air of magic to it. And of course, Merlin being birthed by magic. And so they took Merlin along to Vortigern, and Vortigern laid out the case and what was going on and basically why he needed to do this. And the young boy saw right through the magicians. He saw right through their spells, and he saw right through everything that had been said to Vortigern. And he said, the reason that this is falling to the ground isn't because you need my blood. It's falling to the ground because you're building it on a hill inside of which there's a lake. And so with water beneath it like that, it's always going to keep falling into the lake like that. And not only that, inside of that hill, you will also find 2 dragon stones. And inside each of those, there is a dragon. There's a red dragon and there's a white dragon. These are the dueling powers. And so we find here in this story that Merlin was found to be telling the truth. Vortigern tested, and indeed he found that pool of water, and indeed he found those dragons. And so his magicians were shown to be the frauds that they were. And Merlin was given a whole new platform in life, and he was seen in a whole new way by Vortigern and others. And so this story is touching on these ancient myths of the dragon. It's also touching on the ideas of magic and of the black magic, even of the magicians. But it's touching upon these stories of dragons and the energies of the land and what was underneath the land there. And in one way, these were viewed, this red and this white dragon was viewed as the battle between the English and the Saxons that was going to be taking place. And so Vortigern was a little worried about that. But in other ways, this red and this white dragon was symbolic of something of an alchemical nature. It was related to the red of the masculine, of sulfur in the alchemical process. And then when we look at the white dragon is connected to Mercury, as in the chemical Mercury, not the planet, and associated with the feminine, with water. Okay. And so we have these different alchemical natures. And so this is the particular story. This is the particular myth that I have been drawn to and sat with, and it's taken me on this deep journey, and it continues to unravel, because as of the nature of symbols in these mythologies is that we allow them to take us deep into the unknown, and we peel back different layers and we see and view them in different ways. As we evolve, so do the stories. How does the story of Merlin, the Merlin inside of you that sees through the illusion, how does that play out in this time? How will you work with the red and the white dragon if you're drawn to this story? Or if you're drawn to other stories and mythologies, how are you working with the dragon? And so, what's the dragon bringing to you in your part of the world? What are the myths of the land where you live bringing to you? What are the myths of the lands where you were born that are in the DNA? What's the dragon in your own genome? Because in a world where so many of us have traveled from the land in which we were born, this is why for me, the myths of my homeland are still very important to me because they're deep in my ancestry. And so although I live here on Vancouver Island, there's a deep resonance with the stories from home because I've been there for so long. And now they meld with these here. So I just wanted to share a little on this today, this idea of the dragon lines within the land and the myths that arise out of the land and the myths of the dragons. And perhaps your dragon, you've come to know your dragon quite well. And maybe it just ties in a little more deeply to the nature of the myths of the land where you live than you might even have considered.